A recent Salvia experience has me believing entities exist in another realm. A post on the Salvia Stories subreddit by the user Tincash, posted 5 years ago. I was at a smoke shop getting some things when my eyes saw it. Salvia. It had been 10 years since the last time I'd used it, and for some reason, I just bought it on the spot. I guess I hadn't seen it in some time. I was just kind of bored after getting off of work. I said whatever, and got some 15x extract. Once I finally got home, I was ecstatic to give Salvia another try, so I loaded myself a pretty hefty sized bowl in a pipe and ripped it. Held the smoke in for a bit and started to walk forward as I exhaled. And that's when it struck. I literally took 2 steps out of the kitchen and into the living room, and everything just kind of went blank. I then remember just feeling like my body was strands of material swirling to the left and into one particular area. Once I saw and felt this happening to me, I kind of came back into my living room. Still standing up, I noticed an entity to my left. The strength of how real it felt that there was someone there with me was unbelievable. I've tried shrooms and acid. I've never felt something like that on them. It seriously just blew me away. I was alone, but this presence just felt real. It didn't feel like a trip. I was still frozen and contorted to the left when they arrived. I noticed that they were the ones behind me, turning my body into what felt like spaghetti noodles and ushering me into a certain focal point. The one to my left was a clown wearing blue. He was taller than I was. I'm 5'8", and he was playing some type of instrument that sounded like an accordion, and as he played it, I was sucked further into this void. Then there was a smaller one dressed in all orange, hiding behind my bedroom door, and it seemed to be shooting some type of spiraling ribbon that was connected to my body, turning me into a spiral ribbon as well. It was the best way for them to get me into this void. This is when I started to fight back. I realised I'm seeing some crazy ass shit right now. I remember that I'm just being frozen, staring at this little orange clown, feeling like the blue clown was getting impatient now that I was fighting back. I could even hear him tapping his fingers in the counter, waiting for this process to finish so they could take me to this place or whatever it was. The smaller clown seemed to get discouraged, and I was just simply not going along with their plans. Felt like we had communicated this telepathically, because I didn't actually ask if they were real. I was just thinking it. And the blue clown seemed to give off an attitude as if he'd been through this thousands of times before. You could tell he was getting sick of this, and he told me that they are real, telepathically, and wanted this process to hurry up now. I started to drool, still dumbstruck, paralysed staring at the little orange clown as I was trying to peel off these ribbons he was shooting at me. I even physically felt the feeling of something peeling off of me. It was soon after this that they faded away. I was quite disappointed that they'd left, so I just ripped another fat bowl to see if they'd come back. And then, once more, I was stuck in the kitchen. I started to trip again. I was in front of a circular-looking yellow tarp where my bar counter was at. It was starting to suck me in much like the first time. There seemed to be some kind of operator behind it as well. I wasn't sure if it was the orange clown's doing, but I remember seeing these parallel lines separating rectangular segments that turned from yellow to white and back to yellow. It looked as if there was a focal point to this too, and it was sucking everything in like a vortex. I was nervous. I started to hear the same accordion music come back as I began to get sucked into the void. Then I just remembered that I didn't want to leave everyone I knew behind here, so I quickly grabbed my phone. I didn't want to part from my wife into this unknown hole, so I think I fought back. I was sweating like a motherfucker, and that's when I really got smacked by Sally. I just remember running into the living room by the window, taking off my clothes because of all the sweat. And then I was stuck once more. The blue clown came back and he was making me bend downwards. The weirdest thing about this was that he was making me move down in a rhythm whilst he played the accordion. It was just that noise where something plays, stops, builds up more and more and gets higher pitched as it goes on. He seemed so excited to see me in this trance, as every note was taking me away from here. I was seeing into this other realm when the music would play, and then I'll be back here once it stopped. So it felt like this feeling was slowly devouring me. This time when I was seeing into another place, I was all of a sudden looking at a blue sky and some green grass and trees. There appeared to be something like a white RV. It was to the left of me, but it was all distorted looking. Like an oil pastel painting, if I could try and describe it. I also felt like I saw people's faces that I knew. But it seemed unfamiliar to me seeing what I think was people I knew just meshed into this oil pastel vision. It was very disorienting. It felt to me like the blue clown just peeled back the corners of my vision and forced me to see this place. Or maybe it was akin to my vision being a page, and the clown made it flip to another page with his accordion. After this had transpired, it appeared like I was back at home, but it was completely empty, and all I could really see was a round, huge yellow disc on the ground. It looked like it was made out of thick rubber, and it was spinning with another strange clown entity operating it. Again, this entity was trying to get me to go to wherever it wanted me to be. When they do this to me, try and get me to go, I feel like I'm a texture or something. Like my body is this big Ferris wheel and I'm spinning out of my body, feeling like I'm made of plastic as well. It seems when I realise what's happening in a fight, I can feel the texture of myself being peeled away and just seeing pure white. I was also seeing and feeling some form of disappointment from these entities. I got upset because I didn't actually want to go, and I jerked away with anger and yelled, "I ain't gonna go anywhere." And then, just like that, the trip seemed to fade away. I was feeling slightly nauseous and weak after all this crazy shit had happened to me. But what blows me away is how real these things felt. I honestly don't think I was tripping. I think I was in some sort of new plane of existence. A different dimension or parallel universe of sorts. I honestly, truly believe that these beings are real. I just can't shake this feeling it's been giving me. I've never felt anything like that before in my life. Just the presence of something I don't know or understand being so damn real. There was something there with me, and I was there with them. Where did they want me to go? What would happen to me if I went? It actually gives me a feeling like if I had gone with them, I wouldn't be able to come back and see everybody I love. It felt like death in a sense. There's some really intriguing comments from other users who've had similar experiences like this on DMT and Salvia, so I thought I'd just share them with you. Hyperspace Warrior says that they've had a similar experience on DMT. This story makes me think you'd find its effects interesting. OP replies with, "Ah, really? What were some similarities between our experiences? I've always been interested in trying DMT. I've just never come across it before." Hyperspace Warrior replies, "Lots of similarities with the entities you encountered. I went to a space that was a colourful room made up of cubes with some sticking out of the walls, as well as a clown, jester-type entity that was doing this dance. Kept giving me the vibe that he was laughing at me, but also trying to tell me something like a mime. He then moved his arm to reveal a hallway that had a door at the end of it. There was this bright white light streaming out of it. I tried to walk down the hallway, but I was too big. Not deep enough into the trip. Alice in Wonderland comes to mind. So I couldn't go down the rabbit hole. Tenkash replies, "Wow, that is pretty interesting. Funny how lots of people see clowns and jesters in the trips. I swear these entities are real. We just can see them in the state we're in. It really does give me a mental image of something similar to Alice in Wonderland." The Use Your Dunya Probs replies with, "That sounds similar to my experience. I personally believe that there is an alternate reality, probably a bunch of them alongside ours. I smoked some 20x in my room. I lied down on my bed and was here and not here at the same time, similar to your experience. I remember thinking that reality was still the same, but it wasn't at the same time. The entities, and there were different ones, were within my everyday room. Like I could see outlines of many people through the wall and bedroom closet, as well as my bookshelf and the colour of my wooden floor. It was weird, like a ridiculously overactive imagination, but I don't think it's that. The same thing happened to me where it felt like they were a little annoyed because they had to do this again and again. They had to remind me that this is real, like I keep forgetting. They seemed like they were in a rush for everything. I think also because I would forget again. I remember saying that there were people in my apartment, like with 1,000% certainty, and I was completely alone in this reality. But I was talking to them out loud, asking if this was real, and I also remember them saying that I was going to forget, and that was when I was coming down. I do think it's another reality or dimension as well, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one who thinks this. The funny thing is that I had a dream last night. It wasn't a lucid dream per se, but when I woke up this morning, the dream felt like reality. Felt like waking up was simply opening my eyes. My mind had already been awake, and I still can remember the majority of my dream right now. I'm basically saying this to say that when I came down from the Salvia, the place that I went to gave me the same feeling as the place that I went to in my dream. I believe we do go somewhere else. It's crazy. A deleted user responds to the post with, "This is the second post I've written this on. I've just tried 40x purple sticky again after trying it as a teenager. I felt that I gained a decent amount of psychedelic experience from regularly ingesting mushrooms and LSD and the occasional DMT flash. I thought I'd be prepared for something like this, but no way. I took a fat bong rip and I was dressed for work, and as my reality dissolved, I sunk into my bed and became part of it. I was flipping open like a book and had no idea what was going on at all. I thought my wife looked evil and was laughing at me, when she totally wasn't. Then my vision turned into a giant spiral, and there were these light beings and their heads looked like flickering flames. They were muttering something under their breath, but I couldn't understand it. These beings encompassed the whole spiral and were moving in synchronization. I was repeating their movements back, almost like spinning a big wheel in the vein of the Ferris wheel you experienced. And when I came to, I was mumbling pure nonsense, flailing my arms about, and realised what I had smoked. It was a total loss of ego. I'm not going to lie, at first I felt like I'd been possessed by an evil spirit. But after going back to that space over and over again, I've come to realise that they are just mischievous and curious. They can't actually hurt you, but they sure can scare the life out of you. These to me are the most fascinating reports on Salvia, where they seem to encounter these jester-like entities, which seem to have a lot of parallels with the DMT entities that people experience that have this clown-like aura to them. Personally, I've never actually experienced anything like this, but I don't doubt that this is possible. I mean, the amount of reports I've shared over the years where people meet these similar entities and are transported to these weird sort of carnival-like settings. In a sense, to me, it ties in with this feeling I get on psychedelics when I break through, have an ego death, or experience some altered state of existence or mind, where there's this feeling of there being some kind of cosmic joke at play, like the universe is sort of laughing back at itself, like, oh, look at how silly things can get, and look how scary they can get, but never actually fully physically harm you. I mean, they can mentally scar you, that is definitely something that can happen for sure, but the cosmic joke seems to be that no matter how much pain and suffering and fear there is that it is some form of illusion in a sense. This is me talking very loosely, as I'm still trying to piece this all together myself. If you have any ideas what the rhythmic connection between all these experiences are, then please be sure to share your thoughts on that, because I've been trying to figure out for years, because every time I do have these psychedelic experiences, I mean, oftentimes when you take psychedelics and salvia, you'll be laughing your head off anyway. I mean, shrooms and acid make so much stuff, the most mundane things, like the funniest comedy of all time, and then that can sort of extend into the ego death mystical states, where even though, I mean, you might feel a bit scared, like, oh my god, this is so different to normal reality, there is also that element of stuff being a ridiculous, in-depth joke. Like when I was running around Manchester naked, even though it was absolutely traumatic for like the ego self when I came back, at the time I was just like, oh, it's just all a laugh, innit? There's nothing really to take seriously, because this whole thing is just a joke that the universe is playing on itself. It's like the greatest trick of all time that God or source or consciousness can play on itself using its infinite imagination. But again, that's just me talking some woo-woo mumbo-jumbo. I don't actually know what the crack is. These are just feelings that I've had from my experiences. I don't know if you guys know, but in my 90mg 4-ACO DMT trip report that I wrote many years ago, definitely check out if you've not seen it. I think it's called The Brink of Insanity. So that was the only time I've ever experienced an entity, and it was sort of the classic purple girlfriend that people talk about. We actually discussed this in the recent Psychonautica podcast, where Josie actually brought up the purple girlfriend, and it was a bit of a eureka moment for me. I was like, oh, never actually heard anyone say that before, but apparently this is a common thing for people to experience. And it was this female type entity, that this purple aura, that was telling me that everything's going to be alright, and that you should take life seriously, get serious about life if you want to have a great life, but don't get too serious and bogged down in it, because an important element of life is to be happy and jovial. And I guess you've got to maintain that balance to exist as a human and survive, but in the meta perspective, everything is sort of illusory and doesn't need to be taken so seriously that it makes you suffer. Like, the worst thing you can do is get bogged down by the suffering of humanity. Obviously should acknowledge it and sort of face suffering and fear in a sense, but don't let it consume you, because, I mean, the whole element of laughter, the fact that human beings can laugh about things and even poke fun at sort of dark stuff in a sense. I'm not saying that we should be making jokes about the darker stuff all the time, because it can be in poor taste. Again, this is the balance of being a finite being. But in them states, the mystical states that you can enter through psychedelics or sober awakenings, for many people there is this element of, the cosmic game that's being played. And what's the point of a game? It's just to have fun. I mean, if I was God, this infinite being, formless, encompassing everything and nothing at the same time, and I could be anything I want, I'd probably play the greatest game of all time with myself, which is what life feels like. A giant, infinite, role-playing sandbox, like an MMORPG that expands across every dimension possible and goes on forever. Or it could be a bit like Gary's Mod, because sometimes life doesn't feel as ridiculous as Gary's Mod to me. I'm always fucking falling over. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll leave some more cool comments in the future. I think that's what I really like about these Reddit experiences, the fact that people can comment on them and add their own perspective, and it complements the report itself and sort of adds credence to what they've experienced when other people literally can say they've had the same thing going on. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the flip side.